never thought that Natlan was hiding a functioning white abyss nuke, let alone the one who saved it was actually a dragon prince torn between legacy and failure, which only took a mere 6,000 years to understand his own conflict in believing in humanity, all for the sake of his king's orders. Hey guys, what's up? Aru. Version 5.5 dives headfirst into one of Teyvat's most tragic arcs, the forgotten civilization of dragons, their clash with the heavenly principles, and the machine they built to override reality itself. Beneath the sacred mountain lies Tolan, a city where flame is language, memory is weaponized, and a simple debate between two dragons nearly ended the world. This is the story as well as a breakdown on the sacred dragon city, Ciucoatl, Kukulkan, Huitzilopochtli, and the Chosen of Dragon's legacy. This will include some interesting lore implications for each segment and topics related to the entire questline, so let's get started. This entire story starts with a small creature called the Little One, a young Tepetlisaur drawn toward the volcano by instinct and not sickness, as we previously thought. The people of the Collective of Plenty joke that the mountain needs to be patted better, but this simple humor masks a real phenomenon. Before reaching adulthood, some Saurians are inexplicably pulled to the sacred mountain and most never return. These Saurians would have peculiar marks on their horns or on their bodies. Those who survive this primal instinct become powerful but also maddened beasts, while others often fall alone or are brought to peace by the humans. Guided by a guardian of some nearby ruins, Umposo, and an explorer, Kimosi, the group ascends to the Skyfire Circlet, floating debris stabilized by phlogiston around Mount Tolan. At its peak, we leap through the crater and land in the real Tolan, which is the sacred city of dragonkind inside of the sacred mountain. And this is where our final journey starts. At the heart of Natlan civilization and all of Teyvat's origin is phlogiston, a programmable form of flame described by Kukulkan as computronium, the ideal atom for carrying information. Phlogiston isn't just energy, it's a memory, an identity, a language that dragons used across the lands long ago. Through iridescent inscriptions, complex glyphs, and language weaving, dragons encoded their history directly into these primal flames. And with the right script, phlogiston can mimic anything: a person, a structure, a soul, or even create something completely new out of nothing. Now there are two forms of phlogiston: solid phlogiston used to power constructs, weapons, and mechanisms, and liquid phlogiston used in astral assemblages, code containers that preserve experience, memories, and sometimes merge with the Pyro-Sovereign Dragon. But that's not to say solid phlogiston can't do it as well, as phlogiston is a very flexible element. This tech allows the Little One to undergo a radical transformation, not through growth, but through data inheritance and primal energy transfer. By absorbing ancestral energies and memory through flame, as well as his blood connection to the old era dragons, he becomes what his bloodline once was: a mature dragon with the memory of the old era, completely attuned to his ancestors' blessing, the Flame Lord Ciucoatl's blessing. Astral assemblages and the memory of Tolan. To advance through the sacred city, the traveler must activate 3 astral assemblages using liquid phlogiston. These assemblages were inventions of Ciucoatl, first called Chichimime, manifestations of flame and data within phlogiston. These reveal that Tolan was once considered holy soil by Celestia and struck by the nails, the sacred flame being once a tool for communication and wisdom, the schism between dragons, Ciucoatl wanting rebirth by flame, and Kukulkan seeking to pass the torch. Memory by memory, or data by data, revealing that the dragons didn't just fall from the abyss. They tore themselves apart, with only 2 dragons actually working towards the future of their land. To truly understand phlogiston, it helps to stop thinking of it purely as fire and start seeing it as light. Phlogiston is the main form of energy that powers source mechanisms, albeit a condensed form that closely resembles light. Its original user is the Lord of Primal Flame, Ciucoatl, and his sovereign authority, which is also why the sacred flame which Mawika and Xbalanque uses is a transparent white flame, a transmuted sort of lesser form of the primal flame made into the divine throne. Phlogiston glows, radiates, and illuminates. It stores knowledge, reveals truths, and records memory. It is a form of visible thought, a divine archive projected through white flame resembling light. Kukulkan calls it matter upon which language may be transcribed. This light or primal flame is what is mentioned to be the white abyss that creates an annihilation reaction or cancels out the abyss when interacted. Phlogiston is known as an atom for carrying information and power of all things. But light is the raw, uncondensed form of phlogiston, even more primal and pure than phlogiston itself. This is exactly why the Vishaps or Dragon Realm is called the Realm of Light, as it is the original form of elemental energies today. Even in its most destructive forms, which is the primal fire, never simply burns. It technically restores the dragon era. It's not heat for combustion, it's energy for memory, a flame that reveals that what was once was. And like light, phlogiston is also neutral, neither good or evil. It can be used to resurrect knowledge or overwrite an entire continent, depending on how you use it, which is a fitting power for what is called the White Abyss. Phlogiston is the very thing that defines Dragon's divinity, at least in Natlan. The architect of all of this is Xiuhcoatl, the Pyro Dragon Sovereign and the founder of Tolan. Out of his many achievements, he created his own brothers, of which include Kukulkan or Wahak Lahun, as well as the numerous Dragonborn that would dwell the region of Natlan. The secret source servants, sentient constructs for judgment and memory, of which his first prototype is actually nameless and functions solely as a data recorder and is bigger than the rest. Originally designed as maintenance units for the phlogistonization array, they outlived their creators and the war itself, while some even bear the flame signatures of their builders, echoes of identity etched into machines. Just as an extra note, a single servant requires more phlogiston units than a source idol, which is this thing right here, simply because it requires more memory and intelligence to function as an artificial intelligence on its own. The dragon city of Tolan, where the dragons once lived in its golden prosperity, now an empty husk with memories of its sad past. Astral assemblages known as Chichimime, of which its functions I've already mentioned before. Last and most terrifyingly, the Huitzilopochtli, a device capable of rewriting the world and is known as the Sunquake and creating the White Abyss. All these systems use phlogiston to encode memory and control via iridescent inscriptions, effectively functioning as a language of flame, which technically could only be controlled by the dragons themselves. Natlan once had 13 Dragon Lords and 3 Dragon Princes, including Kukulkan, the Sage of Stolen Flame, Ishlel, the Dragon Lord we meet in Okkanatlan, and Kuhul Ahau, who still lives, the last confirmed surviving Dragon Lord in the current era. The other Dragon Lords and Princes are also mentioned here in this legal document from Tolan, but I won't try to discern their peculiar names for now. Together they ruled an empire of flame and thought, until it began to fall apart. But Tolan's collapse didn't actually begin with the Abyss. It began with the sky. According to Kukulkan, during the era where dragons still ruled, a river from beyond the skies descended and froze Xiuhcoatl in lava, casting him into a false death. This wasn't just molten rock. It was likely a phlogiston-rich lava, not dead, but also not alive. That's when Nibelung, a gentle dragon king, descended. A dragon king who let himself be corrupted by the abyss when he left Tevat, who also corrupted Xiuhcoatl along with it when he returned. During this time, the light realm of dragons were remade and reshaped into 7 elements. No longer the same light the dragons once had shining upon the world, and its holy soil was also no longer the same, as it was adjusted to suit humanity's needs instead. Though the heavenly principles eventually struck down Nibelung in his corrupted return, many of their original functions were lost. After this battle is likely the moment when the Gnosis and the Divine Throne systems were first created, a compensatory framework built alongside Celestia to govern what they could no longer directly control. This was the same time when the Archon War started, but the dragons in Natlan took no part due to their self-absorbed hunger and infighting, which we'll talk about later. In his awakening, it found Xiuhcoatl fractured and disoriented, the mind of a sovereign running on fragmented and slowly corrupting memories. The one who awakened in his place was not the same sovereign, with only brief moments of clarity. His flame was no longer pure white, and his mind slowly corrupted. He voluntarily became a breeding ground for darkness while trying to fix his own falling kingdom. Now still unable to trust his own mind, Xiuhcoatl enacted his final failsafe, a last desperate measure to prevent the spread of corruption, a continent-wide phlogistonization array designed to erase Natlan from physical existence and overwrite it as pure encoded flame beyond the reach of the abyss, creating a moment of rebirth and a world of pure white. Something interesting worth noting is that after the dragons drove the Herald of the All-Plunderer into the mountains, it was said that its master, which is the true god of the abyss, would awaken and destroy everything. Now, while unnamed in official records, the Herald is likely Gosoithoth, and the master behind it is the true All-Plunderer, the one entity that even Celestia fears. The mountains in this tale might be where the Merjivari now exists, which is the only known point of abyssal re-emergence in Natlan following the ancient dragon wars. Huitzilopochtli is the most powerful creation in dragonkind's history, basically a nuke designed to convert all of Natlan into flame-bound data, permanently cutting off the abyss. The main activation devices lie with the entities being put into one, of which was stored separately by Kukulkan and Xbalanque so as to avoid its activation from a single party. Yet we see that only a dragon can actually control the device in the end. Now, apart from looking awfully similar and having the same functions to Mavuika and Xbalanque's Night Kingdom realm, this one is made solely by the dragon race. The Night Kingdom was only made after Xbalanque became Archon, which was after Xiuhcoatl's death, and is tied to the god of death Renova, something that even Kukulkan couldn't go up against, but seemed to be aware about. Now, this dragon nuclear explosion relies on 3 main platforms, each with a distinct role and location. Tolan, the memory core, located beneath the sacred mountain in the ruins of the dragon capital. Tolan acts as the central processor of the system, which houses multiple Qiqi Mime astral assemblages and the core phlogiston archives. During activation, Tolan verifies the world's data and governs the rewrite parameters for when it is activated. The term Qiqi Mime is also used by Citlali, who stores inauspicious stars or unsuccessful stars with fallen Saurian bones, and makes them into deity-like pillows, Citlalin and its papa, calling them manifestations of fallen stars. You could also argue that Mavuika used the similar power of an assemblage, which actually uses the sacred flame and memories to defeat Gesothoth. Think of Tolan as the brain of the Huitzilopochtli. It stores memories and runs the calculations for the phlogiston array. Second is the Tonatiuh, the cable linking the world to the sky beyond, and a prototype leyline stabilizer, located at the top of Ochkanatlan. Originally a sky cable and leyline anchor, Tonatiuh links the land to the dragon phlogiston systems. It was then repurposed as a containment vault where Okkan hid the golden entity. Now, Kukulkan thought of using it as a stepping stone to finding out how the principals made the ley lines into a defense belt around Tevat, which we found out is the main function of the ley lines during our chat with the Lord of the Night, and is the exact parameters that keeps unrelated souls from entering, which we've seen in the finale of Natlan's Archon quest. The only caveat being to infect the main controller itself, which was how Rukkhadevata was affected with forbidden knowledge, and had to be deleted to cure the Irminsul. This is also where Kukulkan thought of dragons merging with humans as a master race, which still hasn't happened fully and only the Traveler could do. This is also probably why one of the Dragon Lords had ties with Xbalanque as well. Tonatiuh is the spine, connecting the local flame with the planetary shell, or at least Natlan's continental shell. Finally, the coverage tower being a broadcast network, scattered all across Natlan, which are mostly in ruins now, built to broadcast the nuclear command to the entire region and maybe even the world if enough of it were built. Although they were destroyed by Okkan, all the towers simply need to respond through iridescent inscriptions, just like in the Temple of the Sage, which was the real broadcast catalyst secretly added by Kukulkan. The coverage tower is the mouth of this explosive nuke. It makes sure that the entire world or the entirety of Natlan hears the command. But without all 3 in sync, the system fails, which is why Okkan sabotaged the network, not to destroy it, but to delay it. And the same goes for Kukulkan, who could not concede to Xiuhcoatl's command to activate it, and then later the Chosen of Dragons, the Little One. Kukulkan, or Wahak Lahun, once loyal to his brother, began to doubt the Dragonborn, yet his respect for Xiuhcoatl was still there. He believed that humanity, although flawed and primitive, might hold the potential to grow farther than the dragons ever could, even merging the dragon races into one. He tested this through his actual son, Ochkan, who attempted to merge dragon and humans through phlogiston. Ochkan failed due to his short-sightedness for Xbalanque and humanity alone, breaking under pressure and becoming a tyrant and ironically a dragon as well. But in his final moments, even he rejects the activation of the Sunquake. Xiuhcoatl created 2 golden entities with his own eyes, data keys that unlock the final system. Kukulkan and Xbalanque each had one as a symbol of the dragon and humans coming together, but Ochkan, being the one to keep Xbalanque, hid the piece in the Tonatiuh after renovating its functions and seeing humanity as a higher race. These weren't just access tokens to the array, they were ideological markers, initially symbolizing surrender to annihilation and belief in a future of rebirth, becoming fake symbols of human and dragon convergence, which was still controlled by a dragon in the end. During the final battle of the dragons and humans, Xbalanque was able to exploit Xiuhcoatl's entreaty disc and managed to slay the Pyro Dragon along with himself. But because of his deal with a certain entity, possibly one controlling death and immortality, he rose from the ashes and became the Pyro Archon, ushering the era that we now have, where humans and dragons slowly come together, fighting and dying and reviving in the same Night Kingdom today, as well as following the tradition of heroes and stories, something Kukulkan already knows but doesn't realize that it's the same exact goal they both shared. It simply took too long to wait and see if his plan worked. As the group enters the Chamber of Deliberation, they meet Awan Yu, a secret source servant drawing from the archive of a former scribe. Awan Yu is bitter, disillusioned, and he sees the little one's mark the same power that doomed dragonkind, but also the same hope in both the traveler and the little one as the chosen of dragons. He delivers mocking eulogies to the tribunal of dragons that once sat in pretentious judgment. He views the entire society and its heirs as pathetic and imbecilic echoes. This is even more ironic since Dragonborn were made by Xiuhcoatl himself the moment he was born. And yet he still helps, because that is simply what he was built to do. With his last function, he leads us to the Permit of the Sacred Heart and then turns off. The reason this permit is needed is not only to activate the entities, but also as a permit to be there in the first place, and keep the 6 assemblages there from firing at us after cleansing the abyss. As we delve deeper into the Chamber of Deliberation, phlogiston inscriptions reveal transcripts from the Sovereign Ruler's Council, exposing the bitter power struggles and petty infighting that led to the Empire's fall. One record details a vote to execute a sovereign ruler accused by her own brother of betrayal. The council, made up of lords like the Jade Maiden, the Weaver of Secrets, and the Valiant One, descended into an argument over ties to humanity, especially her adopted daughter aligned with Xbalanque. Some call her noble, others corrupt, but the final vote is 4-2 in favor of execution. In another meeting, the council votes to impeach the Prince Kukulkan himself. Despite his wisdom and legacy, the consensus is reached. 9 vote in favor and 4 abstain, and Kukulkan is removed. These are the so-called immortal dragon lords and princes, and they behave like frightened nobles. The few dragon lords alive today still harbor the same pompousness and lack of accountability shown during the absence of Xiuhcoatl in his false death. This is why Awan Yu, who once served as a recorder of such councils, has no patience left for Dragonborn. He sees their kind as obsessed with flame, status, and authority, yet completely incapable of wielding either responsibility. Their final downfall wasn't the abyss, it was immaturity, politics, and vanity, of which the Dragonborn should have been able to defend themselves, having all the means that they had to defeat the abyss, but was simply too incompetent and petty. A congress of arrogant fools, this assembly who gloried in their powerlessness. A den of pretenders, claiming the right to judge their own kin. Despite his comments to the little one and the dragons, Awan Yu doesn't hate the dragons personally, he simply lost all hope in what the dragons became, and is now cynical of his duty to guide the chosen of dragons. One of the most important but easy to miss pieces of Natlan's lore is the idea of holy soil. To the dragons, their land wasn't just terrain, it was a consecrated memory. The phlogiston-rich terrain of Natlan functioned like a continent-wide circuit, storing knowledge, transmitting inscriptions, and sustaining the flame language used to govern their civilization. But this holy soil was seen as a threat, but to the heavenly principles who brought humans to Teyvat when they got there. Wahak Lahun calls them the Heavenly Reaver, a being from beyond the skies who saw this memory-bearing land as a problem to their mortal people. And that's very interesting because we previously believed that the Primordial One defeated the dragons first and created humans second. Now, it seems they may have brought humans with them to Teyvat. This parallels Project Arc from Honkai Impact, however we won't dive into that today. According to Wahak Lahun, Celestia cast down Skynails to destroy Natlan's landscape, not because of a rebellion or hatred, but because the soil's memory systems were just simply too powerful. Things that violated the safety of the humans they brought with them and the laws they themselves imposed on the world. They contained records of origin, flamecraft, and sovereignty, the full legacy of the dragons. Considering how every past civilization with forbidden knowledge and knowledge related to the old world tends to be buried up or erased. That said, it's not like Celestia didn't borrow from this system. You could argue that visions and constellation systems as well as Celestia and the current elements is their way for replicating dragon flamecraft, controlled, curated, and disconnected from the holy soil. Another reason for this mass cleansing of phlogiston-rich terrain is to make Teyvat suitable for human and other life. This mirrors what we saw in Enkanomiya's 3-realm gateway offering, where holy soil re-emerges, reverting the land to its original pre-human state. To humans and lesser life, this state is toxic and infertile. But to the dragons, this was the true primordial phlogiston world of Teyvat, before regulation, before Celestia. We even see a glimpse of this in Chenyu Vale during the Sunken Jade quest, where the landscape begins reverting to its original form, as well as the Tsaritsa and Piero wanting to go back to the old world, and even burning it away. Which brings us back to the Collective of Plenty, the modern Natlan tribe who call themselves the caretakers of the fertile land. They don't exactly realize it, but their title is an echo of the Dragon era. The fertile land they protect was once holy soil, not just physically rich, but spiritually and cognitively alive. Even their simple myth of patting the volcano better sounds silly until you realize it's a fragmented ritual, a distorted echo of how dragons once communed with the land. They spoke it through inscriptions, they healed it with primal white flame, and they listened as it remembered them, all through phlogiston, which is light. When Kukulkan says the so-called holy soil phenomenon, he's not being poetic. He's remembering a time where the land could think and reform itself by will, and when a descender came down to make it forget its origins. The Flame Lord's blessing, carried by the Little One, is more than a gift. It's a piece of the old dragon era. Long ago, the Dragonborn were powerful descendants of Xiuhcoatl, able to inherit memory, flame, and thought through phlogiston. They weren't just creatures, they were living vessels of knowledge shaped by the holy soil of Natlan and Teyvat. But that changed when the heavenly principles descended. To erase Natlan's sacred phlogiston memory circuits, Celestia dropped sky nails onto the land, tearing through the phlogiston lattice and changing or regulating the soil. The Dragonborn couldn't survive in this new world, so they adapted. Backwards. Over generations, they shrank, lost their language, and lost their connection to the flame. They became the small, instinct-driven Saurians we see today. The blessing remained, but the ones who carried it forgot what it meant. This is why the Little One is important. He doesn't just bear the blessing, he's the few that could respond to it, and through the primal flame, he does something his kind hasn't done in centuries. He remembers who he is and his past, which is our silly little friend. Something that the few flame-marked Saurians have reached, and even fewer still to come out alive and remove the mark. It's likely that the Flame Lord's blessing won't appear anymore as the prophecy and the city has been destroyed. With the golden entreaties and permit in hand, the group enters the heart of the sacred mountain, fighting a secret source dragon, their final trial. In the middle of the fight, as we're trapped, the Little One is transformed and transported to the true heart where the Sunquake array lies. His draconic lineage awakens, he speaks for the first time in full clarity. At the same time, Kukulkan appears. He reveals that he has guided the journey all along, shifting between his disgusting forms, Manku, Bona, and whoever else he wishes, watching, testing, and hopping all over to find and guide the next flame-blessed Saurian. And after a long monologue through the various platforms, steps in creating and activating the Sunquake array, he offers the final choice, which in all honesty he could have activated himself but still chose not to. Activating the Sunquake erases all organic life, preserve the world as data, or Natlan as data, and become a new Pyro Dragon Sovereign in a world of nothing but white light and merged consciousness, left with the only fond but torturous memory being of the Traveler and Paimon, helplessly waiting for billions of years until his torment ends. Or he could reject it, and risk the Abyss attacking again, but preserve all forms of life, identity, and future. The Little One canonically chooses rejection, while Kukulkan watches, half disappointed but also half relieved and silently moved, and then whispers how wonderful it was, the Little One making the same choice that he did back then, and Ochkan too for that matter. The flame and likely the life of the Dragon Prince Kukulkan finally dims, the array collapses, and the mountain rests, ending the cycle of eruption and the Flame Lord's blessing within Natlan. Technically, this place was destroyed as we left the volcano domain, but you can still go back to it all the way to the heart of the mountain and the array. And there we go, everything I could gather about Tolan, the legacy of the Dragonborn, Phlogiston, and the Sacred Mountain all wrapped in one video. If you enjoy this kind of lore content, definitely leave a like, share your thoughts on the comments, and consider subscribing for more of these lore dives. Anyway, there's honestly a lot of lore packed into every patch now. Between the Dragon Archives, the Secret Abyss, the Ancient Flame systems, and the new artifact lore, as well as the Moon event, it can feel overwhelming to piece it together. So thank you guys for sticking with it and enjoying these uploads as much as I enjoy making them. Now that's gonna be it from me. I'll see you guys in the next one, yeah? As always, like, comment, enjoy, subscribe, and hit the bell for more of my ramblings, and stay mad theorists. Bye!